Our revolutionary patented Q-Fit attachment system allows panniers to be removed and fitted in under 5 seconds. Metal Mule, engineered to be different. Proud sponsors of the bike reviews on Adventure Bike TV.
There is a really strong argument with modern adventure bikes that because they are so sophisticated and so quick that you go past much of the world at such a high speed that you miss a lot of it. And that's part of the reason why last year we spent some time looking at Ducati's Scrambler, because it's not quite so sophisticated and certainly not quite so speedy. Now, I had some very specific views about it when we finished the review. Here's what I said.
So, what did I think of the Scrambler? Well, I thought it was brill. In all seriousness, I really did enjoy riding this bike, and I thought it was great fun. As I said when I was actually riding it for the first time, it's not one that's going to scintillate with performance, but that's not what this bike is about. And actually, in my head, I have a picture, and if you can create that picture in your head of a postcard or a picture from the late 1960s or 70s with a group of well-dressed and trendy guys and girls around their bikes, and the bikes and their trendiness is important to the guys and the girls, and the whole picture, to me, that's what this bike is about. It's about a place in time rather than its performance. And the performance isn't bad at all. You know, it gets you from A to B very nicely. It's a lot of fun to ride, but it's the emotion that it creates inside of you. And as an adventure bike, I think actually it'll make a cracking adventure bike. You can get some nice luggage for it. It'll get you from A to B really comfortably. It's not going to get you there at 80 miles an hour. I certainly wouldn't ride it on the motorways, but I would really enjoy riding it on country roads. And I could see myself doing a tour and an adventure on it with no problem at all. The question is, of course, would I have one of these in my garage? I would be very sorely tempted, but I wouldn't until I'd ridden its biggest competitor, the Triumph Scrambler.
At the end of that review, I said you couldn't really give a proper opinion on Ducati Scrambler until we tried the Triumph Scrambler. Now we're here on a very chilly day at the Cotswold Airport, and I've got Mike Stevens with me.
Hi.
Who has been on Adventure Bike TV before at the Stella Alpina Rally. And Mike, you used to have a GS 1150.
Yes, yep.
And now you don't. You've got a Triumph Scrambler.
Absolutely, yes.
What made you change?
It was the trip to Italy.
Right.
Riding down to Italy on it, I just fell in love with it. The simplicity, the confidence, the fact that everyone seems to love the bike whenever you pull up, and it's just a different kind of riding to be on the GS. Nothing wrong with the GS, but this is just fun.
Okay. So the GS was obviously an adventure bike, or what everyone would
Absolutely.
consider to be an adventure bike. Would you still consider the Scrambler to be an adventure bike?
Any bike's an adventure bike, as you always say.
Yeah, of course.
I've been to Italy on one of these twice. It's done me really proud. So yeah, I mean, it is compromised in the fact that, you know, it's got a small tank range, you've got no screens, but yeah, it's a great bike.
Okay. Right, so there we go with a bit of detail about the bike, and now I'm guessing it's time to ride it, but I've got to be honest, it is absolutely brass monkeys. Tom, any chance we could do it tomorrow?
No,
Really?
no,
100% today?
100% today. Man up, Dave, man up.
The Scrambler has wide appeal, not least to Steve McQueen wannabes, but because of its no-nonsense, workmanlike design and its all-round easy riding abilities. From the moment you set eyes on its old-fashioned steel tube double cradle, it's hard not to feel nostalgia tugging away at your insides. This particular machine comes with an aftermarket exhaust which looks and sounds utterly stunning, but the standard high-level twin items look a little bit truer to its heritage. In many ways, the Triumph is not as pretty as the Ducati Scrambler. I don't want my Scrambler to be pretty. It's not meant to be like that. It should be a little hairier, a little rougher, a little more Great Escape than an Italian boutique hotel. The heart of the machine is based on the Bonneville's 865cc twin engine, and the 51 and a bit horsepower is more than enough to push you along and get the wind blowing in your hair. If you were Steve McQueen without your crash helmet on, of course. The Ducati does have a lot more horsepower, and peak revs are higher too. The Triumph suspension is also a lot softer than the Ducati's. It's perfectly fine for easy riding, but it will tend to wallow when you push it through corners. Overall, the Triumph is actually a little bit easier to ride, as its throttle response is smoother and it's got a light pull clutch. The Ducati does take it hands down on the braking though. The Triumph feels like a big bike, probably because it is. It's 205 kilos dry, 87 inches long and 32.5 inches high on the seat. The Ducati is nearly 20 kilos lighter, its length is 2 inches less, and the seat is nearly 1.5 inches lower. Having said all of that, I do prefer the feel and the size of the Triumph, on the tarmac anyway. We didn't get a chance to really get off-road, but I would imagine the Ducati would nip that one.
Okay, now that I've been out freezing my what's-its off on this bike all day, I've got all the information I need at my fingertips to do the review on both this Scrambler and of course on the Ducati. But let's just get one thing clear first of all. I think it's a question I answered pretty well when we did the Ducati review, which is, are these bikes adventure bikes? Well, we always say any bike's an adventure bike, but these bikes genuinely are. I mean, yes, there's some compromise with tank range, but you know, they're good bikes for adventure. You can take them off-road, you can put some luggage on them. Absolutely, they're great bikes for it, and they're a lot of fun to ride. But what do I think about this bike specifically? Well, the word that struck me when I first got on it was agricultural. You know, it does feel a bit basic. And actually, when you kind of strip it back and make it all bare, the brakes aren't that fantastic. And, you know, it goes, but it's not that fast. It's very thumpy, and it's heavier than the Ducati. In many respects, in fact, almost in every way, the Ducati is a better bike. But which one plucks at my heartstrings? Which one do I look at and go, I want that bike? Particularly with this fabulous loud exhaust on it. Well, I've got to say it's the Triumph. It absolutely plucks at my heartstrings, and I think it's because it is basic. It kind of takes you back to the days when these things were first used. You know, back to the 50s and 60s, and that lack of sophistication. I absolutely love this bike, which I guess sort of answers a question. If I had to choose between this and the Ducati in my garage, which one would I choose? It's the Triumph.
One secure cam lock secures both the lid and the pannier to the bike. Metal Mule. Engineered to be different. Proud sponsors of the bike reviews on Adventure Bike TV.